I only stopped at Casey's off Route 4 because I needed a bottle of water and something halfway decent resembling coffee before heading into the shop. Didn't even plan to turn into that lot. Just saw the glow of the sign from the road and figured I'd pull in quick and get out even quicker. But there he was. Right on the edge of the lot, maybe 2 spots down from the air pump station. Hood popped. Driver's side door open. This guy pacing with a phone in his hand like he was either about to cry or explode. Hard to tell at first. Glance. He was early 30s, I think. Short, dark hair buzzed to the skin on the sides. Some kind of tattoo coming out of his hoodie and snaking up his neck. Not the kind of thing that screams trustworthy, if I'm being honest. But I've always had this thing where I assume the best. That's probably on me. He flagged me down before I'd even killed the engine. Said his battery died, his phone was toast, and he just needed to let his wife know where he was, so she didn't freak out. Said he didn't want to ask someone inside, 'cause last time someone threatened to call the cops. I didn't even think about it. I handed him my phone like I've done a dozen times before for people needing directions, or trying to find their dog. He thanked me so fast it felt rehearsed, then turned away slightly and dialed. He only had the phone in his hand for maybe, I don't know, 2 minutes? Said she didn't pick up, left a voicemail, then scrolled for a sec like he was looking for another number, tried again, then handed the phone back with both hands like he was doing a proper handoff in football. "You seriously saved my skin," he said. Like, really, bro? I owe you one. I nodded, maybe smiled a little. Mostly just glad to be helpful and finally get my coffee. I didn't think about it again until I got back to the shop that afternoon and tried to check my bank app, but it wouldn't load. Just a little spinning circle and then a red banner at the top. Suspicious activity detected. Access temporarily restricted. At first I thought maybe someone tried my old card again, the one that got skimmed at the gas pump 2 years back. But then I opened my email, and there were 3 alerts sitting at the top of my inbox like blinking lights, password reset request from PayPal, login attempt from a device in Nevada, and a flag from Amazon that someone had accessed my account from a new location and tried to buy $2,000 worth of electronics. I stopped, breathing for a second. Then I opened my Safari history, just out of instinct, and right there, sandwiched between Google Maps and the weather app, was some weird string of letters, a link I never saw before. I clicked it once, and it rerouted to a fake Google login page. That's when it hit me. That guy, he hadn't just made a phone call. He'd done something else while holding my phone. Opened something. Typed something, maybe installed something. I don't even know. I called my bank in a panic. They walked me through shutting everything down, but the woman on the line said, and I remember this exactly, "It looks like a successful debit of $3,400 went through at 2:17 p.m. That was it. That was my cushion. That was my car repair fund. My half of the mortgage. Everything I'd saved over the past 3 months. Gone. I had nothing left except overdraft alerts and an overwhelming sense of shame. Not even anger. Not yet. Just that horrible sinking feeling like you left your front door open and someone walked in and took pieces of your life while you were still inside. I told my wife that night. She looked at me hard, didn't blink, then asked if I was sure I hadn't been texting someone else. Apparently, while she was checking the family iPad, a message popped up on my number. Something vague, but weird enough to catch her off guard. "Can't stop thinking about our little moment. You're different." I hadn't sent that. I know I hadn't, but she'd seen it. And no amount of "I swear it wasn't me" sounds convincing when your bank's been drained and a stranger had your phone for even 2 minutes. That night I didn't sleep in bed. I took the couch, and honestly, I couldn't have slept even if I'd wanted to. My stomach was in knots, my thoughts were stuck in rewind, and every time I closed my eyes I kept seeing that guy's face, tilted slightly while he stared at my screen like it wasn't even mine anymore. Sometime around 3 a.m. I got a text from my own number. Just a photo of me, standing at the pump, handing him the phone. And underneath it, "You're a good guy, worth every penny." I sat up straight and just stared at it. My heart didn't race, my hands didn't shake. It was quieter than that. Like the moment after a glass shatters and you haven't moved to clean it up yet. Just stillness. So yeah, that's how it started. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part that messes with me the most. There wasn't a single loud argument or big breaking point. It was quieter than that. Subtle, almost polite, like erosion. The first sign was her phone. My wife Allison always used to leave it charging by the bedside table, screen up, notifications, buzzing through the night. Half the time I'd remind her to mute it. But that morning, the first one after I told her everything, her phone was gone. No explanation, no routine kiss on the forehead. Just silence and the sound of a drawer being gently shut on the other side of the bedroom. She made coffee for herself. Not for both of us. That was new. Later, she asked if I was sure all I did was let someone borrow my phone. I told her yes. I told her again. But then she asked, "Then how come someone texted, 'You looked amazing today. Thanks for the coffee, from your number, yesterday?'" And I didn't have an answer. I didn't even have a memory to pull from. Just this awful heat rising in my face, and that frozen feeling where your words dry up before they reach your mouth. I opened my iMessage history and there it was. Sent, from my number. Time-stamped during the 20 minutes I was stuck waiting for 8 a.m. because my work van had a flat. I'd been 10 miles from any coffee, or any she for that matter. But there it was, plain, ugly, and damning. I tried to show her proof, pulled up my call log, showed her a receipt from AutoZone, even the time-stamped photo I sent to my buddy of the shredded tire. But it didn't matter. The message existed. It didn't feel like her accusing me of cheating, not directly, but it felt like something worse in a way. Like she believed I was lying just to make her feel better. Then came the Discover notification, a $168 hotel reservation in Indianapolis. I hadn't been to Indiana in years, and certainly not last night. I called Discover, expecting, hoping, it was a glitch or maybe even fraud unrelated to all this. But the rep on the phone said, the reservation had been confirmed from my number. Same device. Same IP as my usual logins. I swear. I actually laughed when she said that. Not because it was funny. Just because it felt surreal. Like watching a slow-motion accident you somehow caused but can't stop. At work, it got worse. A regular client emailed me and said he got a weird message signed with my name. Something about a special price if he was willing to meet privately. He asked if I'd been hacked or if I was, quote, trying to be cute. I didn't even respond right away. I just stared at the screen like it had personally insulted me. Allison and I had a shared savings account. Had, past tense. That week, she transferred what was left into her own private account and told me she couldn't afford to take risks anymore, especially with the kids' stuff coming up. Which I understood. I really did. But the way she said it, like she was talking to someone who'd already made his choices and now had to live with them, that stung more than I expected. At that point, I had $48 in cash, 2 frozen credit cards, no access to our shared funds, and a wife who started sleeping in our son's room. Said it was just easier while things were tense, but we both knew what that really meant. I went to the police, not because I thought they'd fix it, but because I didn't know what else to do. The officer I talked to shrugged. Actually shrugged. Told me that since the phone was mine and everything happened through my accounts, it wasn't really a police matter. Sounds more like one for your bank, he said. Or maybe IT. Then he gave me a card for a local tech guy and walked off like I was wasting his lunch break. Meanwhile, my shop was barely holding together. I had to put a few of my tools in hock just to get a set of brake pads for a customer who ghosted me after booking. Another one filed a complaint online saying I'd tried to upsell her in a weird way. I hadn't. But what could I say? No proof. No platform. Just noise. By the end of the week, I was printing out statements, screen-grabbing email headers, building timelines with red pens like some sad detective in a movie. But the more I pulled, the more it looked like, well, like I'd done it all. Myself. Clean logins, valid devices. Nothing out of place except for the part where it wasn't me. And that's when Allison said maybe it would be good to take some space. Just until we figure this out, she added. But we both knew she didn't. She meant me. I didn't argue. What was I supposed to say? That I couldn't even afford a motel room on the side of Route 8? That I'd eaten the same leftover pasta for the last 3 nights and pretended it was by choice? How do you explain to someone that you've lost control of your life without sounding like you're giving up? I still don't know the answer to that one. I don't know what I thought would happen when I walked into the credit union branch off South Grand Avenue. Maybe someone behind the glass would lean forward and say something like, "Oh wow, we've seen this scam before. Don't worry, we'll get it reversed." Or maybe even just look at me like a human being and not another problem in khakis. Instead, I got a laminated sign pointing toward the kiosk, and a guy in a logoed polo telling me to file a formal dispute through the mobile portal, while handing me a printed card with the URL on it like that was supposed to help. When I asked if there were any logs or backups from my account activity that could prove I didn't sign up for half the garbage hitting my inbox, he just gave me a tight smile and said, "That's all handled at the digital security level, sir," which meant not his job, not his problem. 2 hours later, while sitting in the parking lot with my half-melted coffee, I got an email from a loan app I'd never used. "Congratulations, your request for a $2,000 payday advance had been approved. Payment schedule attached." The thing is, I hadn't requested it. But they had my name, my phone number, and even my address. The only thing missing was my intent. And the worst part? The interest rate. The kind that buries people. I tried canceling the contract, but the fine print said the funds had already been deposited to a linked account. Not mine, but tied to my identity. The moment I missed the first payment, my credit took the hit. Not some fake profile or burner account. Me. I watched my credit score drop 27 points in 4 days. It wasn't about buying anything. I couldn't afford gas, let alone credit. But it was this feeling, like I was being erased in real time and replaced with someone more reckless, more chaotic, and somehow more believable than me. Then, the phone calls started. First a missed number with a weird area code, then another, and another. I finally answered one. It was a woman. Soft voice, kinda trembling. "You promised we'd meet," she said, like she was reminding me of a promise I'd made in another life. "You said it was different with me." First, I thought maybe it was spam or some mix-up, but then she said my name. Not just my first name, full name. I asked who this was. She hung up. An hour later, I got an email from a dating site I've never joined. "Welcome to Wander Meet. Profile active." The attached photo? My headshot from my shop website. Grainy, cropped, same worn-out hoodie. And the tagline? "Looking for road trip encounters. No strings, no drama." I couldn't decide if I wanted to throw up or laugh, and I did a little of both, sitting there on the stairs behind the garage with my head in my hands, hoping no one walked past and saw how wrecked I looked. I didn't tell Allison. Didn't even think I needed to. Because someone else already had. Turns out one of her co-workers got sent my profile from a friend as a joke. Said she figured she should give Allison a heads up in case it was real. That's how she found out. She didn't even bring it up directly. Just handed me the phone after dinner and let me read the text myself while she washed dishes with her back to me. That silence between us. It wasn't even cold anymore. It was just hollow. Like walking into a room where someone used to be. I called the platform support line. Tried to explain the situation, that someone was using my photos, my info, my everything, and they basically said I'd need to verify that I wasn't myself. How's that for irony? Prove you're not the person we think you are, using the same credentials we stole from you. I almost threw the phone. That night, our son, he's 8, came up and asked, "Why does Mom cry in the bathroom?" I froze. I didn't know what to say, so I told him we were just figuring out some adult stuff, and I turned on cartoons and sat with him like nothing was wrong while every part of me felt like screaming. The next night, I walked to the ATM by the liquor store at the edge of town. It was past midnight. I checked my balance even though I already knew the answer, 0. I just needed to see it. Needed the screen to confirm how bad things were. It felt like I was watching a stranger's account collapse while wearing his skin. And for the first time since all of this started, I asked myself something I didn't want to ask before. If I hadn't stopped that day, if I'd just kept driving past that guy with the broken-down car and the helpless look and the whole sad story, would any of this have happened? It didn't feel like I was looking for revenge. It felt like I was trying to prove something deeper. To Allison, maybe. Or to myself. That I really was the kind of man who helped strangers. That I really only helped and that somewhere out there was a person who knew exactly what they'd done to me. I wasn't ready to fight, but I was done sitting still. I stopped checking the banking app altogether because every time I opened it, it felt like I was staring into a window that didn't just show me numbers and transactions, but replayed my worst mistake in bright, blinking colors, from the declined payments and overdraft alerts to that little notification saying my debt had now been passed into active review, which felt more like a quiet sentence than a financial step. Allison wasn't even arguing anymore. And somehow, that silence was louder than anything we'd yelled in the weeks before, because now she just moved through the kitchen like she was going through a checklist she'd already memorized, setting a plate down with quiet precision, rinsing her fork without once glancing at me, and walking out of the room without a word, her body language spelling distance even though the room itself wasn't more than 8 steps wide. That night, I decided to dig through the old security footage from the hard drive in the garage, the one I used to back up external cameras at the shop, and after scrubbing through hours of mundane angles and timestamps, I finally found it. Me handing the guy my phone, him talking fast with one hand while holding the screen in front of his face with the other, not to his ear but flat like he was following directions or copying something, holding it there for too long for a quick call to his wife, long enough to make me freeze the frame and feel the sting of recognition tighten around my throat. I saved the still, not because anyone would believe it meant anything, but because it was the only proof I had that what I remembered feeling in that moment, the slight hesitation, the way his thumb hovered, wasn't just paranoia, but maybe the one true thing left in the whole story. Later I found myself scrolling a Reddit thread about mobile scams, not because I thought I'd find a solution, but because I needed to see if this had happened to someone else, and sure enough, there it was. A post describing a nearly identical setup, same kind of fake login, same reroute through a loan site, and someone in the comments had written 6 words that I couldn't stop thinking about. Tempting scam. Almost too easy. It wasn't the scam that haunted me. It was the tone, because the way that comment was written made it sound like this was just a clever trick pulled off by someone playing a game, and I wasn't the victim so much as the punchline to some anonymous tutorial about how to ruin someone's life with confidence and a working data plan. I called the bank again, this time hoping that maybe a different representative might listen a little longer, or hear the urgency in my voice and connect it to something human rather than scripted. But the response was just as calm and flat and final as before, a soft, rehearsed voice saying that device owners are ultimately responsible for the activity associated with their phones. And while they were sorry to hear what happened, there was nothing they could do. Meanwhile, the shop started bleeding trust, not just money, and clients who used to call me directly started going quiet or canceling with no explanation, and one even left a vague 2-star review that said he couldn't in good faith recommend the place anymore due to certain reputation issues, which felt like getting kicked in the back while already down, because how do you fight a rumor when it's written like a suggestion? I reached out to Alex, the guy who'd helped me get started with half the tools I still use, and I told him that if things didn't turn around soon, I might need to delay on our equipment split, and after a few hours, he sent back a message. That stung in its honesty more than any lie ever could, saying that he respected me but couldn't be involved in anything messy right now, and he hoped I understood. That night I stepped out to take the trash to the curb, just for the sake of moving my body, for doing something instead of refreshing screens or checking balances I already knew were empty. And I saw my neighbor across the street, the one with the pit bull and the Camaro who'd once asked me for jumper cables, walking in slow circles on his porch, holding his phone low by his face and saying something I didn't fully catch except for one line that hit like ice. Yeah, that's him, the guy with the phone thing. He didn't wave, didn't pause, just turned his back and went inside. And I stood there for a second longer than I should have, watching a door close like it was a sign. It hit me then. Not in the dramatic sense like a thunderclap or some epiphany, but in that slow, creeping way bad weather arrives, not all at once, but drop by drop until you're soaked. That even if I fixed everything on paper and cleared my name in all the places that legally mattered, I'd still have to live here, where people talk softly but remember loudly, and where no one really forgets a scandal even if they stop talking about it. So I went back inside, powered up my laptop, and stared at the search bar, knowing I wasn't chasing justice anymore or even closure, but just something that would let me breathe without second-guessing every knock on the door or glance at the gas station. Something that would help me prove, even if only to myself, that I hadn't just stood there and taken it. Allison found me sitting on the porch just after 6, still in my work overalls from the day before, and with that old red thermos I hadn't used since college resting between my hands like it held something more than coffee, because I guess it did. At least for me, and I didn't have my phone out. I didn't even know where it was anymore. I think it was dead, or maybe just somewhere under a pile of unopened mail, and she didn't say anything at first, just stood there on the edge of the steps like we were both waiting for someone else to break the silence, and when she finally spoke, it was quiet, almost rehearsed. I read it, all of it. I didn't ask what she meant because I already knew, and I think she saw that I knew, because she sat beside me without waiting for permission, and handed me a printout. It was from that same forum, a reply buried under the thread, posted by someone with real credentials who'd gone through the technical logs I'd uploaded and confirmed it wasn't just user error or carelessness, but an actual redirect attack using a cloned input window and a background script that harvested both login credentials and token access, which, I get it, sounds like science fiction, but there it was, in black and white, with diagrams and all. She said, "I believe you." And that should have made me feel something like relief. But what followed hurt more than doubt ever could, because she kept going. "But I'm tired of living like this, of watching every notification and wondering if it's the next fallout." And she looked down at the porch wood like she didn't want to say it, but also couldn't stop herself. "I need space." I nodded, and that was all I did. I didn't beg, I didn't explain, I didn't even ask for time, because it wasn't about convincing her anymore. It was about the weight of everything that had already passed, and how sometimes, even when someone forgives you, the cracks don't disappear, they just stop widening. I moved into a small studio on the edge of a parking lot, the kind of place that smells like oil and cold air and always feels a little damp no matter how long the heater runs, and it was walking distance to the car wash where I used to take our sedan when it still felt like a family car and not a ghost of what we'd had. My credit score hit 540, which, if you don't know, basically means you're not even worth the paper a loan application is printed on. And both hardware suppliers turned me down for split payments, so I bought a cheap notebook from the gas station and started logging every expense manually. Groceries, gas, even quarters for the vending machine. Because it felt like the only way to claw back some kind of control. Old clients started trickling back, slowly, cautiously, like people testing a frozen lake. And one of them, a guy I'd replaced brake pads for a year ago, handed me a 20 and said, "I know what happened, but you always fixed things. Right, and gossip ain't the same as proof." And for the first time in months, I almost believed I wasn't just the sum of what had gone wrong. I fixed a transmission for a man who paid in 3 parts, and when he handed over the final envelope, he said, "You showed up when you said you would. That counts for a lot these days." And it caught me off guard because I hadn't realized how low the bar had fallen for what people consider trustworthy now. Allison found me on the porch around 6 in the morning, still in my old work overalls, a half-empty can of cheap coffee next to me and no phone in sight. She stood there for a second, then stepped down and said quietly, "I read everything." I didn't ask what she meant. I knew. She handed me a folded page, that forum post, the one where a guy traced the whole scam through the fake QR link and explained how the session was hijacked. It was all there, and it was enough to prove I didn't lie. She said, "I believe you," and I nodded, but then she added, "I need a break. I can't keep doing this." That part hit harder than any doubt. 3 days later, I moved out. Found a small studio above a closed laundromat near Route 53. The window stuck halfway open and there was a rotary phone jack no one used. I brought a mattress, tools, a folding chair, and a hot plate. First night, I slept in jeans, shivering, but oddly calm. My credit score was shot. I wrote down every expense in a notebook, not because it helped, just to feel in control. I bought a flip phone, no apps. Only 3 people had the number. Some old customers returned. One said, "I don't care what they wrote. I need my car running." That gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks, a little dignity. Spam still found me. Fake receipts, creepy messages like, "Remember me?" I stopped opening them. Not everyone wants money. Some people just want to keep you looking over your shoulder. but now I drink from a thermos instead of paper cups. It doesn't spill, it stays hot longer, and somehow that small thing makes it easier to believe I'm starting over. Not completely, but just enough.